Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Dizney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Dizney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show, we're discussing how the COVID-19 coronavirus has affected the Walt Disney Company, including many areas you probably haven't thought about yet. I usually try to keep the show light, fun, and informative, and I know that this is a particularly depressing subject matter to tackle, but not only do I feel that it's important to discuss considering how it will affect areas of the Walt Disney Company for a long time, but also because the majority of you said you wanted to hear this episode as you voted in our social media polls. I would like to note before we begin that I am abundantly aware of the fact that this pandemic affecting people's vacations and entertainment is absolutely not the biggest problem surrounding COVID-19. There are people getting very ill, folks newly out of work, businesses closing, and even worse. But entertainment is what I cover on this show, and frankly, the field in which I've dedicated my life, so that's what we'll be discussing. Joining me today is Kyle Burbank from laughingplace.com, as he's been covering this news very closely over on Laughing Place. We'll get to our conversation right after this. So we're all quarantined indoors these days. It's only a matter of time before we're looking for something new to enjoy. Have you tried listening to an audiobook yet? Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. These days, we could certainly go for something fun and lighthearted, and since the Disney parks are currently closed, I suggest listening to the audiobook Disney's Land, Walt Disney and the Invention of the Amusement Park That Changed the World. You can get this and many other titles for free by visiting audibletrial.com/DCTC. And if you're stuck indoors with little ones, there are tons of children's Disney books also available at audibletrial.com/DCTC. That's AUDIBLE.com/DCTC. Start your free trial today and help distract yourself from all of this craziness happening around the world.
It's time to dive into today's Disney dialogue.
So Kyle, you been busy lately?
Just a little bit.
A little bit busy, of course, over at laughingplace.com. You've been covering all of this COVID-19 coronavirus news. I do want to mention that this info that we're talking about today is changing very rapidly, minute by minute. So if you want up-to-date information, check out laughingplace.com. We're doing the best we can with the information we have currently at the time of recording. Anything you want to add to that?
That's pretty much it. We also, in addition to our various articles, we did put together a page of all the ways, not every single way, but all these updates about FAQs about the park closures and what we know so far in terms of what's open, what's not, and how things are being adjusted. You can find that on Laughing Place as well.
So let's start with, I think, probably the biggest news and the one that most people are familiar with. And you know, there is a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about today that I think maybe people haven't even thought about yet, but let's start with the obvious. And that is the fact that currently every single Disney park in the entire world is currently closed, which is absolutely unprecedented. Honestly, something I never thought we'd say would happen. It's just crazy. And I don't know, did you see this coming, or was this kind of unbelievable to you as well?
I think for a long time it seemed pretty unbelievable, and then at a certain point it became inevitable, and almost to the point where you're like, okay, well, they should have done it already. Anyone who was paying attention to this, everything escalated very quickly, in America at least. And so I think it just kind of reached a point where you're like, this is actually going to happen.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, you know, it is funny to me because a lot of these big businesses are like, we're closing in 4 days or in 3 days. I'm like, close now. And I get it. It's not as easy as flipping off a switch or anything, but it is a little bit like, no, like this isn't something we should prepare for the closing. Just close it. You know, it's.
Yeah, I get that to a certain degree, but at the same time, as soon as they announce that they're going to close, everyone's like, well, I want all these answers to all of my questions right now. And it's like, okay, well, they need some time. Like I said, this escalated very quickly. So just making the decision to close in itself still doesn't mean that they've dotted all their I's and cross their T's. So
Yeah, you know what question came out almost immediately? And I'm not going to lie, like this was definitely a question that crossed my mind. I was a little surprised that people flat out asked it though. And that was the whole annual pass situation. And we'll get to that, but it was pretty amazing how quickly people were like, what does this mean for the annual pass I'm paying for? I'm like, whoa, guys, like I get it. It's a concern, but it's not the biggest concern at the moment. But in any case, let's just start with Walt Disney World Resort. Now they are currently closed through the end of this month. This is, I don't know, do you think this is going to extend? We've seen some of them extend. You think so?
I'm thinking that it probably will. I don't know for how long, obviously, but it seems, given some of the moves we'll talk about later, it seems like they're probably waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, so, Walt Disney World theme parks closed through the end of March 2020. As of right now, the time that we're recording this, the hotels in Disney Springs are currently open. Over at Disneyland Resort, same deal. We've got through the end of this month at least. The hotel is closed and Downtown Disney is open, which I find interesting. I'm assuming this is because of the other businesses it involves.
That would be my guess. Yeah, because a lot of those are third-party vendors, so they're probably just putting the ball in their court. Some of them, I imagine, will close. I'm sure we'll probably see an entire closure of that sooner rather than later. But again, I think they're just playing everything by ear, trying to do what they can to keep something open.
Yeah. Over at Tokyo Disney Resort, the closure has been extended through early April. This is delaying some of their openings. Now, when did they close? They closed back in like January, right?
I don't think they closed that long ago. I feel like it was only supposed to be a 2-week closure. So I think it was just earlier in March, maybe at the end of February.
I'm thinking of the others, Shanghai and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tokyo, like you mentioned, it's going to push their grand opening. They were supposed to open at Beauty and the Beast ride. And I believe the Big Hero 6 ride was also supposed to open on the same day. And that was supposed to be on their anniversary, April 15th. So It sounds like all those festivities are getting pushed until at this time they're saying May.
The reopening of the park is hopefully in April. The celebration of the new rides opening would be May. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, Disneyland Paris, once again, at least through the end of this month. It sounds like Disney Village will be closing as well. At one point,
yeah, that's an update. Originally, it was going to stay open. They just announced that it's now closed already.
Hong Kong Disneyland still undetermined as to when this will reopen. This is one of the ones that has been closed for a very long time now. And we have no date in sight, right?
Yeah, no, it's been closed since January. I haven't seen any updates. I've seen some videos of people who have gone. So the thing about Hong Kong is that there is not a downtown Disney type area. So at Shanghai, as I'm sure we'll mention in a moment, they've reopened part of their equivalent of downtown Disney called Disney Town. Hong Kong doesn't have any such thing. They have a train station and an esplanade. That's about it. So I've seen pictures of people, I guess, have been able to access that area and have walked through. And everything's still closed there with no reopening. I think there might be I think their hotels might be open, though, and they've made adjustments to their restaurants there. Okay. So I think it's also partially reopened, sort of like, or never closed. I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Shanghai Disney Resort, their park has been closed since, I believe, January as well. They're in the partial reopening process, meaning Disneytown, as well as Wishing Star Park and the hotel. Steps in the right direction, but gosh, they've been months closed. I perhaps naively am assuming we will not be closed that long. I sincerely hope here in America.
I think it depends on if this 2-week starts to see the number of infections going down, which I'm not a scientist. I haven't been paying that close enough attention to the news to know whether that's a thing, but I feel like the way everyone's acting now, or the majority of people at least that I see on social media from the comfort of my home, where everyone is apparently, it seems like everyone is kind of sheltering in place and that it'll start to curb. But then again, we're also starting to raise the testing. So I'll probably see the number of infections go up, and then hopefully, we'll hit our peak.
Yeah, it's nuts. But so obviously this is, nothing even close to this has ever happened where every Disney park in the world has closed. It's kind of nightmarish for Disney fans. And I just want to talk about for a second the impact of Disney parks on people's emotional status, because the reality is that these parks are very much places where we go to escape reality. I have definitely, luckily, I live close to one, but I've definitely had days where I'm like, it's a bad day. I'm going to Disneyland to like get over this crap going on. And it's just, when that's taken away, I think this is just really bad. Obviously I'm not stating anything wise here, but it's not good for the mental state of people, I think. It should have closed. It was the right thing to do. It's concerning, like really concerning.
Yeah. And then, that's only from the outside. And then just the ramifications for the economies of, Orange County and Osceola and Anaheim, and then the cast members directly. Like it's crazy to think about.
And here's the thing, even if in best case scenario, let's say the parks open April 1st, like as of right now they're saying, let's say that happens, things are not going to go back to normal anytime soon. And that's a really, really hard thing to accept. It's really funny though, when I think of, the Disney parks and just kind of the way people are affected by it. There's so many disaster movies out there where we see the White House being blown up or the Statue of Liberty being destroyed and stuff like that. I have always said, if you really want to tug at the heartstrings of moviegoers, have a tornado take out Cinderella Castle or something like that, because I honestly, like, all joking aside, I think that would have a bigger emotional connection to people watching that film. And, that isn't obviously what happened, but in a sense, it's been taken away from us in that form. And not only Cinderella Castle, but all of Disney parks. So I don't know, it's a tough moment to get through. And I'll say, I'm sure you saw some of this as well, the kind of closing moments of the parks that people are posting on social media, where, the last days that the parks are open, you have cast members and a lot of characters at the exits to the park waving and in very high good spirits, and, bless all of those lovely people. But I gotta say, even just watching online, it was making me emotional. And it was kind of the moment that was the reality check of, oh, this is actually happening,
Yeah. And for transparency, we're recording this on a Sunday, so Disneyland is currently closed. Walt Disney World, actually, that moment hasn't happened yet. I am expecting that at Walt Disney World, it'll be even more emotional, given what we've seen with some of the things we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah, so it's crazy. Now, some news did come in that some groups at Epcot are now performing their last days. The drummers that we've seen in Japan for many years, British Revolution, it's being reported, these are their last shows now. They've been told their runs are ending once Walt Disney World closes for this period of time. And, I think it's easy to say this is just the beginning of all of this. We've seen it time and time and time again. When there are budget cuts, the first thing to go is entertainment. It's the easiest thing to cut, even though I think it's the thing that sets Disney parks apart from every other themed park. But, this is just the beginning of all this. And this is really devastating for many reasons. Like I said, it's the thing that sets the parks apart in my mind, but also it's a lot of people losing jobs unexpectedly. And also just like, fan connection to these things. They're being taken away from us with no warning. And, I said this at the beginning of this episode. I understand everything we're talking about is basically the least of our worries when it comes to this pandemic going through the world right now. But this is what we're here talking about. So, It is a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think there's some hope in the case of these performers in particular, and also Sergio from Italy, from Epcot's Italy, apparently has also been having his last performances already, I guess, as we're listening to this.
I wonder why they felt the need to make those decisions now. Like, I could understand if during the closure process, like, okay, we need to make severe budget cuts, and here's what's going. It's a little interesting to me that they're like, before the parks are even closed, are saying, these are cut. I find that weird.
Well, it's probably something with their contracts. Like, who knows how long their contracts go. So there's probably wording where Disney can cancel those contracts in light of an unforeseen circumstance that will cause them not to be able to fulfill the terms of the contract. So they might have to enact those clauses now because of the closure. Doesn't mean that they can't negotiate another contract later. Just means that they need to enforce.
Yeah.
They're out now. Would
That
be my
makes
guess.
sense.
I'm not
That
a lawyer.
makes-
Let's ask Aaron.
No, that sounded intelligent though. I like that, Kyle. That's probably right. So one other thing that's happening is, we have mentioned in a lot of these cases, the parks are closing, but in some cases, hotels are remaining open, and in those hotels are character dining, which apparently is still happening with some adjustments. Now, all face characters, so your princesses and such, will no longer stop at tables during these character meals that are still running. And that's for safety, distance of exposure and stuff like that. Your characters like Mickey and Minnie and such, they will still come to your table and take photos with you. I'm shocked these are still going on at all. I understand they want to disrupt as little as they possibly need to, but I'm shocked that these are still happening.
I think within a few days, people won't be staying there anymore and it'll become a moot point and they'll close.
Yeah.
I think they're just trying to ride it out as long,
Yeah.
make things as comfortable as they can in the meantime.
Yeah.
But
now, we did touch on annual passes a little bit. They are being extended, folks, in most cases. I'm just going to say overall, not just Disney, but most companies right now are being very, they're being lenient as far as their rules of cancellation and stuff like that are concerned. So if you have anything, obviously not in all cases necessarily, but in a lot of cases. So if you have anything that you're concerned about losing money on, look into it. Call lines are very busy right now, so, maybe shoot an email instead and don't expect to hear back as immediately as you probably would at one point. But they did announce the annual passes are being extended. It really depends on the level of annual pass as to how long it's going to be extended. There are some annual passes that, may not have had access at all during this 2-week period that we're currently at. So, we won't know for certain exactly what this is doing until we know when the parks are reopening. But rest assured, if you're paying for annual passes, you will get your money's worth of what you were promised. So there's that.
And I believe those procedures are pretty much the same. I just got an annual pass update from Disneyland Paris where I have an annual pass, and they're doing very similar things. So I think Walt Disney World is the same way. The one thing for Disneyland, though, is that you'll need to keep making your monthly payments the same. They're not going to be able to halt those, but then you won't have to pay them for your extra days at the end of your pass.
Is that just Disneyland? Is that not how they're dealing with it everywhere?
I don't think other places really have monthly payments besides.
Oh, I thought Walt Disney World
They
did.
might. They probably do. I'm not as familiar, honestly.
I'm pretty sure they do. So yeah, you're going to be paying like normal essentially. And honestly, as much as that stinks when you can't go to the park at a whim, it also makes sense. That would be a nightmare to try and reconfigure all of that stuff. So I get it. Now let's talk about cast members for a minute. We've already talked about some of the performers and stuff, but one bomb that hit that I don't think anybody saw coming was the Disney College programming essentially ending fairly immediately. And the Disney College program, if you're not familiar, a lot of the cast members that you see in the parks are from the Disney College program. These are college students living out a dream, working for Disney, learning a lot while they're there, but also doing those front-of-line jobs that you see in the parks. And this is a blow for a ton of reasons. Number one, hearts go to all of those kids currently in the Disney College program. I know somebody who's, co-hosted on this show who is affected by it right now, and he went there not so long ago to Walt Disney World to do this, and it's really devastating. We are hearing that they are being paid through March, and their housing fees are being waived, but the government has revoked work visas, and Orange County has mandated evacuation of college housing, which has caused this to have to happen. I don't know. Anything else you know about this that you can add?
I just know that have to vacate by Wednesday. By the time you're hearing this, they'll be out of there, or about to be out, because I think it's 11 a.m. on Wednesday morning Eastern time that they have to be out. So, even if they're not traveling internationally, like some of the Epcot employees, these people come from all over. People might live in California and have to, drive all the way back to the Bay Area or try to find a flight, which is going to be, we might have by the time that happens, we might have domestic travel restrictions. Who knows?
Yeah.
So they might have to. The good thing, I've been really encouraged. I'm not sure how it's going, obviously, but I've seen a lot of people on Twitter using hashtags, offering pretty much any help they can, whether they have a place perhaps that could be somewhere can stop on their way back home, or have a place in Orlando where they can stay for a few weeks, or just offering cash assistance. But the Disney community online has really come together to try to help out these college students as far as I can tell.
Yeah, the hashtag that they're using, if you are a college student in the college program who needs assistance, or if you're somebody who can offer assistance, I've been seeing on Twitter the hashtag CP Help being used. That stands for College Program Help. So hashtag CP Help. I will add one thing to this. Anybody using this, just be careful. I would highly suggest using a buddy system. There are a lot of really wonderful people offering help right now, but there are, just because there's this crap going on in the world doesn't mean that dangerous people aren't still taking advantage of that. In fact, maybe taking more advantage of that. So just no matter what you do, I really want to promote this hashtag CP Help because I think it's wonderful. It also concerns me a considerable amount. So just
no, I agree. That's why I'm saying I can't verify this stuff, but it seems to be mostly good.
Yeah, hashtag CP Help if you need it, and sometimes Diz Twitter goes a little insane, but sometimes things like this are pretty amazing to see. So yeah, there's nothing else I can say. Well, actually, there is something I want to say about the college program, and that's this. We talked about at the beginning how even if these parks are only closed through the end of this month, as they're saying, these college kids are a huge, huge part of the cast members you see in the parks. So they're all gone, essentially. So reopening a park without them, I honestly don't know if they can do it. I don't know how they're going to get around that.
Especially Epcot.
Yeah, especially Epcot. I could even see it being something like, hey, we only have enough staff right now to open Magic Kingdom and Disney's Hollywood Studios. And, it'll open in in different segments that way or something, because I don't know what the percentage is, but I feel like I see a ton of college program name tags whenever I'm in the parks, even here at Disneyland Resort.
Well, there is apparently another class coming in. According to the Sentinel, it said that next class was coming in May.
Okay.
So that might help. I'm sure that they overlap because I think there's another one in August I've seen. So
okay.
I feel like they come in every few months. But maybe you're right. They also might just be expecting whenever they do reopen that it's going to be just such diminished attendance, almost after 9/11 or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Now, of course, some portions of the park, the resorts are remaining open. We've talked about hotels, at least for now and such. And, there are cast members still working. If you're working in Disney Springs, anybody working in those stores is still working. So, there's also that concern of if we're able, we're staying quarantined in our homes, but there are people who have to report to work and are potentially being exposed to all of this and stuff. So I'm concerned about them as well. I don't know. The cast member situation is a really difficult one right now. And I get it. We can't stop living, but it's insane is what I'll say. It's just insane.
Yeah, there's nothing else to say. It's a difficult situation for everyone. And, if Disney has said that they're going to pay the cast members during the closure, but, we don't quite know to what extent or how that'll go.
Yeah.
So
if you have a job that depends on tips, I doubt you're going to be seeing that money. Also, I don't foresee this being a forever thing with, Disney paying people's wages. If this goes on as long as it has for Shanghai or whatever, and I don't know what the situation is there as far as whether or not their cast members were paid, I honestly don't know. But if it goes on for months, I don't foresee that happening. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll, do it. I don't know. One thing we have seen is, a lot of food at these parks will go bad during the period of time that it's closed. So a lot of it is being donated to food banks, which is a wonderful thing. At least it's not being wasted. And yeah, I don't know. The one thing I'm really curious about, so as we mentioned, there are cast members working Disney Springs right now. With the parks empty, can construction crews show up? Can work on Avengers Campus continue? Can, there's the Cinderella Castle, which, by the way, I do not like the new colors. Just putting that out there. It's a bit too extreme. It looks like somebody took the saturation on Instagram and just put it all the way up. And I get why. Yeah, I get why they're doing it. They just want to make sure the sun doesn't, destroy it immediately. But that's a whole other thing. But in any case, can they continue working on Cinderella Castle? Like, my guess is yes. These are probably groups of people far below what the limits are as far as the government is concerned, of groups being together. What do you think? Do you think they'll continue?
I mean, to a certain extent, you would expect so, or take advantage of it almost. But then again, it's like, yeah, if you want everyone to stay home, then you want everyone to stay home. But it's almost like you're saying, like there's probably not that many people. It almost, maybe people want to keep working just because it gives them something to do. They feel safe enough that they're not in close quarters to anyone. They're just taking their car, parking close to the site and being able to walk on to their construction lot. I have no idea what these people are thinking, obviously. Just speculating. But I don't think we've heard one way or the other on that.
The announcement for Avengers Campus was announced, during a little bit before the insanity of this, but definitely during it.
During the escalation.
Sure. So I feel like if they felt there was any chance that their construction crews couldn't continue working, they would not have made that announcement.
I mean, they also were releasing Mulan stuff.
That's true.
Up until that too. But so
I legitimately saw a commercial today still advertising Mulan for March 27th. And it was one of those
seeing ads for Michael Bloomberg too, so you never know.
Yeah. So yeah, it's weird. Speaking of, it's a perfect segue. I think that touches on the park stuff. Are you good with that? Should we move into movies? Okay.
Let's move to movies.
So movies, some stuff has definitely been delayed. The live-action Mulan has been delayed. The New Mutants from 20th Century Studios has been delayed. And Antlers from Searchlight Pictures has been delayed. Of course, all of these fall under the Disney umbrella. Man. It's funny because AMC movie theaters, and I think another chain as well, has announced they're, as of right now, at the time of recording, they're staying open and they're selling their theaters at 50% capacity so that people can sit far apart from each other.
Yeah, no, I got an update. So I used to work for a movie theater chain in Arizona and California and a few other states. They are taking a few precautions, some like that, and they're also doing things like, you get a free refill when you buy a large popcorn. Mm-hmm. So they're discontinuing that, but they're lowering the prices of their concessions by $1. And they're also giving out, they have these plastic cups that you get $1.50 refills or whatever. Similarly, you bring it in, they're not going to fill that cup. They're going to give you a paper cup for that discount, things like that. So just all sorts of things that you wouldn't immediately think of.
Yeah, so I mean, they're trying to get butts in seats.
And it's already affected their box office. I mean, Onward opened to 40 million last weekend, which you could probably argue was due in part to this. It took a 73% drop this weekend. It only made 10 million in its second weekend. It was, I believe I saw the worst weekend at the box office in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I'm surprised they just haven't closed the movie theaters. I'm sure there are contracts out with studios and stuff, which is maybe what's making them stay open. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's the same thing as everyone. They just want to be able to provide escape for people. And, you have employees you need to consider. Like those megaplexes, you might have 150 employees.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wouldn't go to a movie theater right now. I got to be honest. Plus the fact that everything I wanted to see has been delayed or I've seen already. So, there's that as well. So, yeah, Mulan was going to be a big movie. Let's face it.
And that's why they delayed it, is because, they just don't want to throw it into the abyss.
Yeah. So,
we should mention that unlike Fast and Furious or Bond that have rescheduled dates, all three of these are up in the air. They said that they're looking for other options in 2020 at the moment, but we don't know. And the most interesting one to me, actually, besides Mulan, is New Mutants, because this is a movie that's been delayed several times and was supposed to come out 2 years ago.
What was the reason for it keep getting delays?
There's been all sorts of rumors. They said they were going to do reshoots or that Fox wasn't happy with it, but apparently the reshoots never happened. So I think the cost is sunk. They should just put it on Hulu at this point. Like, I don't think you could do that. I don't think you could do that with Mulan because, first of all, you don't want to lose that money. And also, I think the exhibitors would find it to be a slap in the face because they are expecting it to do business. Don't think anyone would mind if you just put New Mutants on Hulu at this point. But
yeah,
what do I know?
It's crazy. And I was actually looking forward to Antlers. That's Guillermo del Toro's little horror movie with Kerry Russell. And
did he direct it or just produce it?
I'm not sure. Probably produced it. But, it's a fun little horror movie I was going to check out. Let's talk about some production that has been halted because of this. Of course, this affects ABC, Disney Plus, and more. Just going to mention some random popular shows here. The Goldbergs, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Grey's Anatomy, Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, The Little Mermaid live-action movie, the Home Alone reboot, Shrunk, Peter Pan, and Wendy. These have all been apparently put on hold at the moment. That's a lot more people out of work who, had these gigs lined up, and it's going to delay release dates, of course, and it's a huge problem for employees.
Yeah, it's going to back things up, probably kind of like the writer's strike did almost, where you might have shortened TV seasons and delays of, there's going to be a gap in movie releases probably. And then just another note, you mentioned Jimmy Kimmel originally. So there was one show, I don't know if you saw it, that Pete Buttigieg guest hosted, and they ended up having no audience for that one. And then now they've shut down production, but they're actually going to flop it. So they're going to move up Nightline to Jimmy Kimmel's spot for a bit to give nightly updates on the COVID-19 and then show repeats of Kimmel at midnight. So I think that's another, or 12:30 or whatever. So another little interesting sign of the times.
Yeah, you mentioned the no audience thing. I know The View was doing this, and I don't know if they've stopped and I'm not at this point. But it's weird to me to think of these shows, and I honestly don't really watch any of them currently. But I was a huge fan of the Rosie O'Donnell show growing up, and I can't imagine a show like that having no audience. And Kelly and Ryan were doing shows with no audience. Mm-hmm. Very strange sensation. It reminds me kind of going back to 9/11 with TRL. I was a huge Total Request Live fan, and I can remember when they did come back to air, of course, out the windows is Times Square, and just seeing like no traffic and no people in Times Square. It was very, very weird and jarring and frankly unsettling. And that's just kind of the feeling I get with this. It's weird to not have audiences in these seats. So I think most of them, if not all of them, have ended at this point.
Yeah. And then we mentioned other things getting backed up, but they've apparently halted productions on pilots. So that's a big deal for people in Los Angeles, but also just from a TV scheduling perspective, lots of questions about what'll happen. We're going to feel reverberations of this in the entertainment industry for months, if not years.
Yeah, I'd say at least a year, I would say. There are also a ton of cast members in various different positions throughout the company working from home currently, which is great. It's great that they're being allowed to do that and being told to do that, quite frankly. But that's going to affect many things as well that we can't even contemplate at this point. But there's a lot of people, obviously, all over the country dealing with this working from home thing. But, keep in mind, there's a lot of people at the Walt Disney Company that we don't even think about on a day-to-day basis. And who knows how it's going to affect the next year or so. Let's jump over to Disney Plus, because they did something really, really interesting, which was they brought in Frozen 2 3 months early, is it? It was
supposed to come out in late June.
Yeah, so they basically said, hey, y'all are stuck at home. You need some entertainment. We're going to be bringing Frozen 2 to you very, very early, which I thought was, a nice thing to do, but also genius marketing. I think
it was
Disney
trending.
Plus Disney Plus, Netflix, all of those streaming services are going to be doing very well. And honestly, probably more subscriptions, not even just people who already have it, but people are probably going to be buying into these because if they're really truly staying at home as they're being advised to do.
And with Frozen, they announced it was going to be coming on Sunday, and then it actually showed up on Saturday. So even earlier than early. And they also, the digital release of Rise of Skywalker, they also was supposed to come out Tuesday. It came out on Friday night on some platforms. Not to be confused with Disney Plus. You still have to pay for that one.
Yeah, it's not on Disney Plus yet. But I don't know, I just think it's really smart, and obviously there's marketing to it to a point. It's not just to be nice, but it's just smart. I was like, okay, cool. And I'd be very curious to see like the Disney Plus viewing numbers. I'm sure we'll never see those numbers, but I'd be curious to see over these next 2 weeks and beyond what that looks like. It's crazy. Now, Disney Cruise Line, the cruise line industry in general, taking a hard hit as of right now, or at the time of recording. Disney Cruise Line has suspended new departures through April 12th. And once again, they are making it, I don't want to say easy, but a lot easier than it would normally be to get future cruise credits or full refunds. So look into that if you had a Disney cruise happening. The cruise line goes everywhere, man. And like the airports, we're trying to distance ourselves from people. And so it's just an industry that's going to be gone. And I don't know, they don't have any college program on cruise lines, do they?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
I don't think they do. But once again, tons and tons of cast members currently out of work because of it. So Disney Cruise Line, man. Anything you want to add to that?
No, but I think it segues into Adventures by Disney as well.
So Adventures by Disney, they have suspended new departures through the end of March, is what they're saying for now. Interestingly, though, they're excluding a trip to Australia. There is, one of the Adventures by Disney to Australia is still happening. That's happening within this 2-week period. So, to those folks, have a wonderful time, is what I will say. I hope it's a nice distraction from everything going on in the world. But Adventures by Disney, once again, another business like Disney Cruise Line that travels all over the world, and that is a major concern right now, obviously. Closer to home, we have Disney on Broadway and Broadway in general. This was basically demanded by the state of New York to shut down, and all Broadway performances are suspended through April 12th. And Disney has waived exchange fees for any performance through April 19th. So once again, they're making it easier. Normally, theater tickets, there's like no cancellation allowed. They're obviously making it a lot easier. There are people canceling their entire vacations because of this. Now on Broadway, Disney currently has Frozen, Aladdin, and The Lion King, 3 long-running shows. And, this is a community that actually really concerns me. The theater business in general is not as profitable as, theme parks and such. And theater being shut down, it's a huge deal. And, obviously my heart is with live theater. So I don't know. It's rough, man.
The economics of Broadway, I think, would surprise a lot of people. How much it takes, how much of a success a show needs to be in order just to break even. So any sort of shutdown.
Yeah, most shows fail. That is this, when I say most, I mean a great majority. Theater in general, even when it's big businesses like Disney doing it, it is made more out of love than anything. And if you're lucky, you make profit off of it. It really takes something like a Hamilton or a Wicked or something like that, at least a couple of years usually to be running, which, if you know the statistics of theater, a lot of shows don't even run a year. It's an interesting business plan or a business model, but thank God we have it, because I'd be a very sad person without it. So Broadway's going to be in trouble for a while. I know for a while when they were still open, Scott Rudin was offering $50 tickets to his shows, and he produces some of the biggest shows on Broadway, and $50 was like a sixth of the price in some cases. So, they were doing anything to stay alive, but eventually this whole mandate from the government came down saying they couldn't run, so they're shut down. Speaking of live events, there were many that Disney was supposed to be part of that now cannot be because they've shut down. What are some of those?
So South by Southwest is a big one. I believe Chapek was supposed to speak at that even before he was CEO. They also premiere different TV shows and things there, get buzz for those panels. Obviously that's a huge event, and that was canceled. Also, CinemaCon in Las Vegas, the annual event for movie theater exhibitors, also got canceled, and that's where Disney presents their slate, makes connections with their people that are going to be showing their movies. So that's another big event for them that's also gone.
Yeah, Disney has to be really happy that this isn't an expo year, I gotta say. Even though that would still be, still several months off, and frankly, I work for a convention that is in August and late July, and I'm really hoping all goes as planned. But if Comic-Con announces closure, we're in trouble for sure. So it's nuts, man. And gosh, if you've ever had any dealings with conventions as far as working behind the scenes of it, the amount of moving parts is insane. Absolutely insane. And the amount of hard work, and once again, people losing work because of this is sad. And is Disney involved with WonderCon at all? Do you know? I know that's been...
They sometimes have some panels and things. Like, I actually just went to C2E2 in Chicago, and that might be the last comic convention we have for a while. But Marvel had some presence there, and Mark Ruffalo, who's obviously not owned by Disney, but does have some Disney credits.
Are you sure? Yeah, there might be a brand on his backside.
He was there. But yeah, then they had Marvel Comics panels, and FX did a panel there for devs. So if that would have been 2 weeks later, it probably wouldn't have happened, but just so happened that we were there. So
now, an area that Kyle Burbank was very surprised to hear me even recognize or remember is how much this is all going to affect ESPN, which of course is owned by Disney. Like, sports are just canceled.
So this weekend, it's not just ESPN, it's also, ABC normally shows, they were showing the XFL most recently. I think on Saturday, they ended up showing some 30 for 30s from ESPN on ABC during the daytime when XFL and other things would normally be on. So I think the good thing about ESPN is that they do have a library of classic games that they can show, and they do have other content like 30 for 30, which are, if you're not familiar, documentary films about different stories in sports. It could be a single player, it could be a team, could be all sorts of things. They'll probably lean on that a bit as well.
Do people tune into old games that they know the outcome of?
Yeah, there's definitely some classic games. I mean, even as someone who, I'm not a big sports fan, but one of my favorite things to do when I'm in a weird mood is just watch the endings of games, whether it's teams I care about or teams that my friends care about. So I'm talking, the Giants winning over the Patriots, ruining their perfect season.
Hey.
Talking the last outs of like the Cubs or Diamondbacks back in 2001 when I lived in Arizona, or Cavs winning. My wife's from Cleveland, so that's a big deal. So yeah, even if someone like me can get enjoyment from that, I imagine that people get enjoyment of watching very classic games.
That's really funny that you do that. When I'm in like a mood and I just need some relief, I tend to put on like stuff from my childhood. So I'll pop in Little Mermaid or Are You Afraid of the Dark and stuff like that, and that'll make me happier. But last night, actually, I was just, sad about the whole Broadway thing, and so I popped in Grease Live, which was on, I think it was Fox, right? The now Disney-owned Fox back in 2016.
I don't know if Fox produced it, but it aired on Fox
No, it was
Network,
Paramount
which we don't
Television.
own.
It was Paramount Television, yeah.
Okay.
And it shot at Warner Brothers. But in any case, I popped that in, and I gotta say, of those live musicals that everybody always has bad things to say about, I don't even think it's a competition. Grease Live was done so phenomenally well.
I liked Hairspray.
Hairspray was very good. They did it very similarly to Grease Live, where they used the backlot and sound stages, and I preferred that far over what they were doing earlier with the stuff in New York that was just sound stages, and then the stuff they started doing later with Disney and their whole Little Mermaid concert live mix. No. Yeah, it was horrible. But in any case, the Grease Live did it right, and then Hairspray followed suit, as did Christmas Story, the musical live. And those are the three that are the best. But Grease, rather, was just so phenomenally done. And they were dealing with a rainstorm, so even they were dealing with a bad situation. Not to get on that tangent, but in any case, that's bringing me my happy moments. I hope y'all are finding things to make you happy in the moment, because we could all use it. But ESPN, definitely concerning for them, I'm sure.
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of time to fill.
Yes, they will. Now, the Disney stock market, you noticed some interesting little factoids about this, if you want to jump into that.
Yeah, so like the regular stock market, the Disney stock has been just kind of all over the place in the past few weeks. So, it had a big run after they announced Disney Plus and did that whole press event. It shot up and then kept going up as those numbers got released. But now there's a pretty big difference in their 52-week high, which was back in December, was $153.41. And then this past week, when basically the stock market broke into a bear market, their 52-week low was at $91. So that's a huge difference. Right now, they're back over 100. The stock market's not actually open at the moment, but they're staying over 100 at the moment. But yeah, that's a huge gap, and it makes you wonder all that goodwill that they just had from Disney Plus and all that strength is now kind of, set back.
All of this just proves how genius or how intelligent Bob Iger is. Oh man, did he see some writing on the wall, I would say. I think he was like, you know what? No way on earth 2020 is going to do as well as 2019. Let me leave on top. So smart man, and made the right choice, I would say, because it's going to be tough, not just for Disney. For
some of that might be priced in as well, but Disney's drop is about in line with maybe a little bit stronger because every element of their business is now under fire or under pressure, at least.
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, I do want to touch, before we go here, I just want to mention something that, Disney is going to be fine, is just what I want to say. So when we talk about these concerns and everything, yes, they're concerning. There are individual cast members and stuff that will be highly affected by all of this stuff going on. But, the Walt Disney Company is going to be fine. We've all seen they have very deep pockets. And I think you would agree with me. Am I speaking naively here, Kyle?
I don't think so at this point.
Okay. So at this point, the company will be fine. I really want to take this moment just to point out how devastatingly bad this is for small businesses and independent creators and stuff like that. And I just want to touch on this. It's actually something I've wanted to talk about for a while, and I've been holding off on this. And Kyle, if you don't want to be associated with this, you can tell me and I will cut this all out. But I've seen comments recently, not only for myself, but lots of creators out there, listeners or viewers commenting about advertising used. I've legitimately seen YouTube videos where people complain that, somebody puts ads in their videos. And I just want to say, don't do this to people. This is an insane thing that's happening. Independent creators are, in my opinion, they create some of the best content available. And of course, I love stuff like the Walt Disney Company creates and other large corporations, but it's the independent creator who creates content out of love primarily. But just because we love doing it doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to make money from it. It's really concerning when people feel like they act as if none of this costs money to make or create. And it's just an insensitive thing to do to creators out there in small businesses. I've been seeing, I'm wondering if you have, online people saying a lot about small businesses. If you have a mom and pop restaurant you love going to right now and you're scared to go, buy a gift certificate directly from them.
Yeah, no, I saw your point. That's a really great point, because liquidity and needing that capital right now is super important.
And the important part of that is directly from them. There's always Groupon and stuff like that to go through. We don't know how quickly these businesses will get that money. So if you can go directly to a business you love, whether it's online or in person, if you need to, support them in that way and use that gift card later when things settle down and you feel more safe going out in the world. It's something really, really important that I want to touch on. Same thing for independent creators. Some people create podcasts, YouTube videos, theater, whatever it may be, simply as a hobby. But there are many people like myself who feel it's a calling far beyond just a hobby. So these types of people should not be harassed or insulted for trying to make a living from it. That doesn't happen in any other business, and it's a very weird thing that I find happening as far as creators are concerned. People feel this obligation of getting everything for free, and even if it's offered for free, the idea of attaching advertising to it is somehow insulting to the listener or viewer. And, you know, there are many, many people out there who have jobs that they love and they get paid very well for. And it should be the same for independent artists and creators to have the same right. There are still huge amounts of time, effort, energy, and work being given to create the product that you love and enjoy if you're listening or watching or whatever it may be. So if you enjoy independent content, support them on Patreon, make a donation, shop online using their affiliate links, whatever you can do. If you have the ability to do these things and decide not to, that is fine. It's your choice. But don't be surprised or complain when these unique, independent, and small businesses go away and all that you're left with are large corporations only letting you in on the story that they want to tell you. That's not a world that I want to live in, and small businesses overall are in more danger than I can ever remember. Like I said, this is all up to you. The folks that listen, watch, enjoy whatever small business it is that you love to keep them alive. So if you're ever thinking about leaving a comment on someone's YouTube video about how you find the ads to be insulting, or that someone promoting their product for sale too often on their show, or whatever complaint it may be, just keep it to yourself. That is how these shows can afford to be created. And, obviously you're enjoying it if you're listening or watching. So if you can give. I know that there are many people out there who pay for subscriptions like things like Disney Plus, Netflix, AMC A-List, or whatever it may be, and barely ever use it. So just think, is there any podcast you listen to more often than you're using your streaming service, or any YouTube creator you watch more often? If there is, consider subscribing to them by making a donation, signing up to their Patreon, or perhaps just using their affiliate links for Amazon or wherever the next time you need to shop. Helping that way is at no additional cost to you. I just wanted to put that out there. Kyle, sorry to rope you into that.
That's okay. I agree. And I would just, like you alluded to, if you kind of like the airplane, secure your own mask first. Like, obviously a lot of your listeners are going to be going through their own troubles. So don't feel like you also need to give money to every podcast you listen to. But that's where just watching their videos and putting up with their ads and sponsorships can really help, and it doesn't cost you anything. So,
and mostly, the thing I mostly want people to get from that is, if you have a complaint or a feeling that you want to complain about somebody advertising on the content that they are creating for you for free, just don't do it. It just doesn't look good, is what I would get down to. And yeah, I've just been hearing it more and more and more lately from independent creators, and I just wanted to put that out there. So I will get off my soapbox. I apologize for that if that offended any of you listening, but I don't think that really is for most of you listening, is what I'll say. I appreciate every listener, and yeah, that's all I'll say. Sound good, Kyle?
Fair.
Okay, cool. I do want to mention, obviously, there are a lot of hard times for a lot of people going on right now. There's a lot of unhappy moments in life. I'm trying to do this little thing where I went through all of the past episodes of Disney Coast to Coast. I just tried to find the ones that make me really happy or laugh a lot. And I am, for every day that every single Walt Disney World park is closed, so that was starting this past Monday, I am tweeting and posting in the Instagram story just kind of episode suggestions. If you're looking for something to listen to just to put a smile on your face, you can check those out if you want. It's Disney CTC on Instagram and Twitter, DIZNEY CTC.
And if I may, Laughing Place is doing something similar. The site's been around for 20 years. We've actually just found a bunch of videos, some of which we've published, some of which we haven't. So we're going to be trying to focus on those and put out some of our other content from the parks and reliving happier times, basically. So
fantastic. And I'm sure a lot of people will start doing this, and just don't inundate your life with the uncertainty and, unhappiness going on right now, is all I would have to say. So let's end this with some more fun stuff, and that would have to be trivia. You ready for it, Kyle?
I'm ready.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
All right, Kyle, do you want to hit me with trivia first, or shall I hit you?
I'll go first.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I don't know if you're aware of this, but back in the day, Disneyland wasn't always open for 7 days a week. They would close on Monday and Tuesdays during the off season. Do you know when they went to a year-round 7-day-a-week calendar?
Ooh, I think it was early 80s. I want to say 1984. I have a feeling it was around the same time that the passports became a thing.
You're super close.
Okay, so 1983?
Wrong way.
Wrong direction. 85?
Yes.
So 1985. Do you know when the passport thing started? I think passport
I feel it
was
is around
84.
the same time, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it is so funny though. 1985. So like within my lifetime, Disneyland was not open every single day of the week. And that's kind of an insane thing to think about.
During the off season, like during the summer, they'd be open every day. And I did read
Sure.
that Knott's was closed on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So you would at least have a park to go to 7 days a week. But
that was really smart of them. And really, yeah, that's quite genius. I always love that, going back to Broadway for a second, if people don't know, most theater in general goes dark, as they call it, on Mondays. But there's always like a couple of shows on Broadway usually that will, and they're usually shows that have been running for a long time and maybe having a harder time getting an audience, but they'll run on the Mondays just because there's always the tourist that's like, oh, hey, I want to go see a show. Oh, well, Chicago's the only thing running. I guess I'm going to Chicago, or whatever it may be. So that's smart, the whole Knott's Disneyland switch off thing. Very, very good. So my question for you has to do with 9/11, which of course, September 11th, 2001 was another time where Disney parks closed here in the States. And at Walt Disney World, according to thisdayindisneyhistory.com, I'd never read this before, but they had a very unique way of getting the guests out of the park when this, obvious terrorist attack was happening. Do you have any idea what I'm referring to?
not really. I would imagine they'd have like overhead announcements, not about what was happening, but just that it was closing. Did they like kind of sweep them with security or characters or something, kind of like lead them to the exit?
So according to This Day in Disney History, they say that cast members in all 4 parks were instructed to hold hands and form a human wall and gently, without touching guests, walk towards the hub of each park and eventually towards the exit. This calmly forces all guests out of the parks. Security follows each human wall to make sure no one gets past, and it takes less than 30 minutes to evacuate thousands of guests from the theme parks.
Wow.
That's kind of insane.
You get partial credit.
You'd certainly get partial credit. I can't even imagine that visual. Like that's insane. And frankly, 30 minutes is really fast to clear a park. But I can't even imagine being a cast member working an attraction and being like told, hey, form a wall and just start walking.
Yeah.
That's
and of course,
crazy.
Disneyland never opened that day because of the time difference. They already knew that things were happening.
That's right. Yeah, so crazy. I said the trivia was going to be happier, but we end on that crappy note. Oh, man. This world, I promise, the next episode will be much, much happier.
Going to focus on an attraction you can't go on. It's going to be
exactly. So for those folks who requested that I do this episode, I hope that it was informative and insightful. And once again, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. Stay positive, and we'll get through this together. If you haven't listened yet, be sure to check out last week's episode where I had a discussion with Adam Wachter, the music director from Disney Plus's Encore. And as always, you can catch up on the latest Disney news this upcoming Sunday in the House of Mouse headlines. If you're able to give a little support to the show and looking for some DCTC bonuses, be sure to visit patreon.com/DisneyCTC. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast.
Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.